Good evening and welcome to SVG-TV's news for Friday, June 7th, 2024. I'm Triska Campbell with the details. Minister of Education Curtis King has welcomed the decision by the Caribbean Examinations Council (CXC) not to discontinue four subjects at the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate (CSEC) and the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Exam (CAPE) levels. The decision to continue certifying these subjects follows intense pressure from the education stakeholders across the region since the news broke 2 weeks ago. Citing low enrollment, CXC had announced that certification of mechanical engineering, agriculture science, double award, green engineering, and electrical and electronic engineering and technology would be discontinued effective September 2024. However, that announcement did not sit well with the regional education stakeholders. Speaking on radio last evening, Minister King said he is happy that CXC reversed its decision, noting that worldwide there has been discussions about having a greater emphasis on skills in the education of students. He emphasized that the subjects which were proposed for suspension by CXC are needed.
What persons are arguing regionally, internationally, that look, the skills component of our education system is underrepresented, and hence we should up the tempo with regards to the provision of opportunities for students to engage in a greater level of skills in terms of technical, vocational education and training. And clearly, these subjects, as you can see, basically TVET subjects, and more so, they also falls within what we are promoting now as very significant STEAM, that is to say, science, technology, engineering, the arts, and mathematics. And clearly, persons were concerned, how can CXC, the regional examination body, which ought to be working very closely with the government and people of the region, how CXC could make such a decision? I had said on another media outlet that, look, it makes very little sense for us to be criticizing and lamenting what CXC has done publicly. And I'm speaking here so as government representatives, and more so as ministers of education. And I thought, and I did call for us to have meetings of ministers of education to discuss the whole issue and to make our recommendations or to give directives if that became necessary.
Minister King said the meeting held with CXC and the education ministers throughout the region on the matter resulted in an agreement to continue offering these subjects. He also mentioned that CXC and the ministers of education across the region have agreed to improve their lines of communication to better facilitate any decisions that may be taken in the future.
Let me remind persons that CXC is a creature of the regional integration process. I mean, CXC was established by the governments back in the 1970s. That is to say, the independent governments at the time, Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados, and Guyana, and of course, those territories, most of which at the time had internal self-government, like the OECS countries, basically. And since then, we have moved towards strengthening the integration process, and we know we have a CARICOM mechanism. But I repeat, CXC is more than simply an examination body. It was set up to work closely with the governments of the region in assisting the economic and social development of the Caribbean region. So we have, if you like, a resolution that is amicable to all concerned. Nevertheless, as I'm indicating, ministers felt that there are some other issues we need to sit down and deal with because, let us face it, CXC is our regional examination body and it is an important institution, and as such, it is for all of us to work to ensure that this regional institution functions and functions well, and more than that, that it aids the development of the region.
With an aim to enhance global collaboration, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Monday, June 3rd, established diplomatic relations with the Islamic Republic of Pakistan through the signing of a joint communique. Ambassador of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to the United Nations, Her Excellency Inga Rhoda King, and Ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan to the United Nations, His Excellency Munir Akram, signed the joint communique for the establishment of relations between the countries. The signing ceremony held in New York was indicative of both nations' commitment to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations and the thrust for friendly relations among nations. The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines anticipates building pathways for bilateral and multilateral cooperation between both countries. Health Promotions Officer in the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment, Shanika John, said a health response team is in place to handle any eventuality during the Cricket World Cup matches to be held here. Speaking on NBC Radio this morning, John said they have taken into consideration a number of risk factors, especially with the anticipated high influx of people coming into the country.
Have our responses from a hospital level, from a community level. I know Dr. Walters has been working as well in terms of the allocation of the ambulances, the drivers, to ensure that we have sufficient coverage across the different settings, and also to ensure that we have coverage locally as well. So it's not a case where we're going to be now zooming on what's happening on the different match days, but we don't have sufficient coverage in the country. We're also putting measures in place to that. In terms of the risk assessment, we're also making sure that we cover. So I know Health Security just did a series of training in mass casualty and emergency management as well, where they basically enhance the capacity not only in health, but other sectors like the police and Coast Guard and so forth, to ensure that we have sufficient coverage on the ground to be able to respond to anything locally or something that might be, in affecting these areas. Our Port Health team is also on alert as well to ensure that those persons who are coming in to the country are meeting the required standards within the country and that we're still in good keeping.
SVG will be hosting 5 matches for the ICC Cricket World Cup 2024, with the first match slated for next week, Thursday. With less than a year before the scheduled opening of the new port and capital Kingston, the SVG Port Authority is building capacity with staff keeping abreast with the latest technology. Speaking at the second SVG Port Symposium held this week, Chairman of the SVG Port Authority, Caroline Russell, said that it is necessary to get everyone on board and under how they can and understand how they can better a service to be offered when the new port becomes operational.
This new port will provide in business, in tourism, the transformation of the city. Think of the new technologies going forward, the use of machines with lower carbon emission, the use of AI, artificial intelligence, the more use of data analytics in our work environment. These are all exciting things for us. And not only the staff and management at the port, but also all stakeholders need to start seeing the vision that we are seeing and the future that is there for us. And while the future is exciting, we need to pay attention to the changing environment that we are operating in and the things that will occupy our minds as we go forward, the issue of climate change and the impact on our vulnerable economies.
The Port Authority chairman said data security is crucial for operations, not only for the staff, but for its stakeholders.
The need for non-renewable offshore power by large cruise ships as they look to come more further south. They're requiring to have non-renewable energy, and that must be all onshore powered. Data protection and cyber security. As we digitize our environment, these are things that are going to occupy our minds going forward. The protection of customers' information, stakeholders' data. We have to ensure that our environment is as safe as possible and that not one stakeholder will allow our environment to be weak, and that people's data, stakeholders' data, can be exposed.
Several changes have taken place at the Port of recent, with new scanners being installed at Port Kingstown and Camden Park. Tomorrow, June 8th, is World Oceans Day, and here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, several marine biologists and other divers clean the oceans at the Marine Conservation Area at Villa. The divers collected garbage as they endeavored to keep the ocean litter-free. Joshua Gooding of Eco SVG Alliance, who led the group of divers today, reported that the ocean is not as littered as was expected.
As you can see, we have a couple bags here, which is just a sign to show that Villa Beach isn't as polluted as some may think, which is good for those living within the South Coast Marine Conservation Area. They're doing such a good job in making sure that their environment is clean, hence why we have very little garbage. It was a good day. There was a very strong current in the beginning, but we got out of it coming down to the end. We saw lots of octopus. We call them octopus gardens because they had their shells everywhere from the prey they got. We also found some plastic by some of the octopus dwellings. We had to remove those. And we also left certain garbage in the sea, may I add, because we found some invertebrates living inside of some of the plastic bottles, and our goal is to remove all the plastics that are in the environment. However, if we do find living things living inside of it, we're just going to leave it there and come back another time, and hopefully that creature would not be in there anymore.
The Fisheries Department led the bleach cleanup, supported by Carney, and several environmental organizations also participated in the event, organizing a cleanup at Fort Duvenet.
This project looks at the South Coast Marine Conservation Area, but in this particular case we also included Annesville because we understand that the currents coming down from the Warrawarra River come straight here within the South Coast. So remember, we spoke about creating a blue-green economic development model. It gives us cause to understand that whatever we do on land affects whatever is happening within our marine ecosystem. Right?
Just like every marine environment near heavy development, the South Coast faces numerous threats. Pollution from wastewater and sedimentation degrades water quality and harms these precious marine ecosystem. Illegal and unsustainable fishing practices also pose a threat to the species that can be found in this ecosystem.
The theme for this year's World Oceans Day is Awaken the Depths, with the action theme being Catalyzing Action for Our Ocean and Climate. On the 72-hour weather outlook, the SVG Meteorological Service says fair to occasionally conditions will persist within the next 24 hours as the Atlantic high pressure system dominates the weather conditions. It says Saturday progresses, a tropical wave should begin to affect the islands, triggering showers into Sunday. Residents and motorists are asked to remain on alert and moderate to fresh easterly to east-southeasterly trades are expected to cross the islands, with a temporary shift to east-northeasterly on Sunday morning. Seas should remain slight to moderate in open waters, with swells ranging between 1 and 2 meters. Sahara dust haze concentrations are expected to gradually thin out across our islands today. The Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force wants the public to know that the recent amendments to the Firearms Act, which include hefty penalties for firearm offenses, are now in full effect following the conclusion of the National Gun Amnesty. The 91-day amnesty, which commenced on March 1st and concluded on May 31st, saw a total of 18 firearms and 327 rounds of ammunition surrendered to the authorities. The surrendered firearms include 3 Glock 9mm pistols, 2 38 revolvers, 1 Rec revolver 35, 1 high-point pistol 380, 2 12-gauge shotguns, 2 25 pistols, 6 22 revolvers, 327 ammunition were also handed over. The RSVG Police Force says the amnesty concluded with an impactful community walkabout and town hall meeting in the town of Barley on Thursday, May 30th, 2024. With the conclusion of the amnesty, the RSVG Police Force states that its zero-tolerance policy towards firearms is ongoing. The police say the amendments to the Firearms Act are designed to enhance the regulation and control of firearms, ensuring stricter penalties and enforcement to maintain the safety and security of the multi-island state. The Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force says it will soon host a news conference to present the results and outcomes of the National Firearms Amnesty 2024 and provide a comprehensive overview of the amnesty's impact and the positive steps taken towards reducing illegal firearms. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is ranked 4th in the world with the lowest suicide rate, according to the publication Population Review. Speaking about the ranking on radio earlier this week, Prime Minister Dr. Alf Gonsalves said it highlights that, by and large, people are content and feel generally safe in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
I always ask the question, if we are a country of such killing maniacs, why you don't kill yourself? Because by and large, people are contented and people feel generally safe. And the data show that. Grenada, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines in that order. You could look it up, Johnny P., lowest suicide rates in the world. You know, the one I typed in is World Population Review, suicide rates per 100,000. Antigua, Barbados, and Grenada is just under 1 person to every 100,000. St. Vincent and Grenadines is 1. Guyana is 40. Trinidad and Tobago is, Suriname is 25. Trinidad is 9. St. Lucia is 8. I'm rounding off the numbers.
Yeah.
So you gotta put a billboard opposite, you know. SVG, a happy people who love life. 4th lowest suicide rates in the world.
Annually, it is estimated that about 700,000 people around the world die by suicide. The World Health Organization in 2023 named Lesotho as the country with the highest suicide rate in the world, recording 75.6 suicides per 100,000 people. In other news, the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment has noted the extreme heat that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is experiencing and is advising people to stay hydrated. Chief Promotions Officer within the Ministry of Health, Shanika John, speaking on NBC Radio today about several health-related matters for Carnival and cricket, emphasized the importance of staying hydrated.
The Met Office actually put out a statement to say that they are going to be expected that for the rest of the summer, well, for summer, quote unquote, for just a season, but it's always hot in the Caribbean for us, but more particularly for June, July, August, that it is going to be warmer than normal. And I don't know about you, Johnny, but it's been pretty warm those last couple of nights. So we do understand that some people have been having some difficulty in terms of how they feel and the temperature. So we really want to advise persons to, as we say, beat the heat. And beating the heat means that you really want to ensure that you are hydrated, that those persons who are more susceptible to having things like heat stroke or being affected by the heat greatly, that they would also be the ones to ensure that they cover all of their bases.
John cautioned that drinking anything other than water might not ensure proper hydration. She stressed that particularly in extreme heat, water is essential for maintaining hydration and health.
When we say hydration, we don't necessarily mean just drink any and anything. There are a lot of persons who would tend to swap out water for a carbonated drink, or swap out water for something, as they say, to quench their thirst. But the best thing for you to do to stay hydrated right now is to have water and your electrolytes, which you could get from coconut water, or even just adding a little bit of pink salt. Please talk to your doctor about that with some warm water to really ensure that you are hydrated.
The Health Promotions Officer said with Carnival and cricket, many people are bound to have lots of fun. John noted the chances taking place at the Annisville Sporting Complex, which will attract patrons for the cricket matches, and advised alcohol consumption be taken in moderation.
Runnings with this, because people tend to say it's Carnival, we have to free up and live up and all of that, but we always say that there's life after the season. So even for the upcoming cricket festivities, I must say that the team who did for the party stands and what I've been seeing posted online, I got an opportunity to visit the site in person. It's exceptional, Johnny. It's amazing. It's wonderful. I could see people having a grand time at this particular setting. But I also still want to remind persons that there's life after. So you still have your family, you still have your friends, you still have people who care about you, and just making sure that you play on the safe side in this aspect so that you can have a longer run for the season, and even going down into Christmas as well, where we always have another heightened festivity period as well.
She emphasized that knowing one's limit is key, not only during the carnival season, but also at cricket events.
So we really want persons to know your limits. If you can't drink, if you can't hold your liquor, if you can't hold your alcohol, we prefer if you don't drink. If you must drink, we ask you to do it in moderation, and moderation is very selective based on the individual first. But ideally, we really want to push persons to, don't have their alcohol intake at all. But if you're going to argue with me and tell me that it's a nice time and you want to enjoy the season, we're going to say, as local terms would say, don't drunk and turn over.
Right. Additionally, for the carnival season, the Health Promotions Officer is asking that people take charge of their sexual health.
It's also a time when people tend to get very festive, very experimental, maybe with even sex partners and so forth. And this is really not the season to do that, simply because a lot of these activities are not things that would have been tested prior. Long distance relationship, committed relationship for a while, where you know each other's status. And so if it's just going to be something that is one-off and in the moment, we ask you to really think about it before you actually go into it, because these could be very detrimental to your health.